Hi, everyone. This is Vaibhav Sehgal. I'm a principal at Economist Impact, and I'm joined by Carolyn, who is the Deputy Chief Sustainability Officer at the U.S. Department of State, and also Krista, the President and Chief Executive Officer at the U.S. Dairy Export Council. Today, we're going to be talking about pathways for progress in terms of furthering the net zero agenda through the mechanism of public-private partnerships. I know I'm keeping you guys from lunch, but I promise this is going to be interesting. I won't start with a definition of what a public-private partnership is, because it is fairly self-explanatory, but we still do need a level set. So kind of the first thing to really unpack is when we think specifically about furthering progress against the net zero agenda through public-private partnerships, is the calculus any different? What is each of the two key stakeholders expected to bring to the table? Is it quite like a typical PPP?
I would say that it is similar. It's great to be here, and it's just another subject that we're looking for. I would say the difference is that it's so comprehensive. When you look at net zero, it captures every part of management and operation. It captures what you're doing beyond that in scope 3. So it's like a regular PPP, but much, much broader. So in our experience, it means that the number of partners has increased, the amount of complexity has increased.
And Krista, anything you want to add?
I agree with Caroline. I also think that maybe the stakes are a little bit higher now. There's just so much to gain and so much that we could lose if we don't have these kind of partnerships. They're so critical to success. I work for the U.S. dairy industry, including the 30,000 dairy farmers, as well as processors and manufacturers, the cooperatives, the things that make good things like cheese and milk and ice cream. All that's in our industry. And our farmers are so committed to being more sustainable, GHG neutrality, optimizing water, recycling, water quality, but they can't do it alone. This is costly. This takes a lot of time and investment, and we have to have those partnerships to make sure we get where we need to be.
Let's try to get into the complexity and the challenges a bit more. So from the U.S. Department of State's perspective, really, what are some of those key challenges that are making you prioritize or consider more public-private partnerships?
Sure. Well, you all heard from Andrew Mayock this morning. We have an ambitious agenda. And then at the U.S. Department of State, we also represent the United States government overseas. So we are not only looking to do it because it makes good sense, it's good for the taxpayer to be efficient and economical in how we approach our management and operation. It's also what we show to the world. Our embassies and consulates are diplomats in and of themselves. They're showing U.S. technology and design. And so when we think about the Department of State footprint, we have 19,000 real estate assets, we have 90,000 employees, 14,000 vehicles. It's a big portfolio, and so that's what I'm focused on. How do we get to net zero with all of this diversity throughout our operation? So the challenges, it's somewhat similar to what farmers face. There's just so much. It's such a big, broad challenge, and in the government, we don't have a lot of extra people that can kind of think about this. I would love that. And we also have very tight budgets. So, some of the challenges that we're looking to overcome are financing, which I know is also true of the private sector. We're looking to overcome personnel and staffing challenges and training challenges. And we're also looking at financial risk. And by that, I mean not only the financial risks to our operation, which we don't have a great handle on. We don't have a line item on our budget yet to capture that. And we also have a challenge on when we're looking at energy saving performance contracts or power purchase agreements, which are long-term deals, we don't have a good handle on how do we share financial risk with the private sector. And we don't have that expertise in-house. But all of those things are very important for modeling the U.S. commitment to climate action here domestically and overseas. So those are the challenges that keep me up at night. But I'm very excited to be working on it with all of you.
Can I add one thing I think that's really important that we need from the public side, and that's research often. That pre-competitive work, that investment, and I think about, I don't know what I'm doing to this, but not very good. And I think about USDA and some of their groundbreaking research that's done in a pre-competitive way to help farmers, to help our industry have those solutions, those ideas on genetics, on feed rationings, the things that any farmer, any company could use, and the credibility of having government stamp on research is very helpful as well.
To that end, I know obviously NASA was here earlier with some great visualization. Another challenge we have is granular data for the global landscape. So when you think about what FEMA has available domestically for looking at climate, sea level rise on your facility, that same level of detail does not exist overseas in many areas. So if you have a global operation, facilities, farms, anything like that, if you need that, you need granular data to make these predictions. So our Bureau of Overseas Building Operations has actually been working with NASA and NOAA and USGS to prepare that data globally. And I think, as multinational corporations are looking at their work, they have the same question. So, I love the point that you make because it gets to the point that we also need to share the data. And so one of the programs that we run in my office is the air quality monitoring program, because we don't have good data in many places around the world. And so we share that data publicly. And that had been the underpinning of some of the things that you saw earlier today. But we need that on a drastic scale. So if everybody can kind of share the data that we're all working on, and we can then help advance our climate action and climate risk management.
So one of the big things that you guys just mentioned, but also has come up in a lot of our recent research on public-private partnerships, is the fact that there is a serious lack of clarity around equitable risk sharing, risk allocation schemes between the public and the private sector partners, so to say. And this is actually resulting in challenges with unlocking more private investment, or resulting in unspent private money even. So what does good practice here actually look like?
I'll just give you an example from dairy, and it's the only ag sector I can speak to right now, but I think there are other examples as well. When our industry set our environmental goals in 2020, it really, right at the beginning of COVID, a great time when we could have walked away from the challenge, our industry said, no, we're going to do this, and we started looking at truly the mountain of research and data collection and technologies that are needed, innovation that's needed to really get to GHG neutral, and also with water quality and water use as well. It's big issues for our industry as well. We knew this could not be done on the back of farmers. They're willing, but they need partners. They need others at the table with them, taking some of that risk. Nestle, Starbucks, the Nature Conservancy, the Foundation for Food and Agriculture are all our partners, and there are others as well. He said, we believe in what you're trying to do. We understand it's a tough journey, and we don't have all the answers today. We want to help you figure this out, provide technical assistance, financial assistance, invest in what you're committed to doing. That's the only way we're going to get to these answers, because if it was just flipping a switch, we'd flip the switch. It's really, really hard. And for us to collectively as an industry to pull together and find those kind of partners, help sharing the risk, help sharing the ideas, help sharing the investment is so critical for our success.
Yeah, the inequitable part is very salient to me because of the lack of personnel and training we have for entering into some of these PPPs and PP-like program. Because when we think about financial risk and we're looking at these long-term complex financing deals, sharing risk is so important, and I hope the market is more mature now where we're doing that a little bit more. But it all depends on the metrics that you put in place, the measurement and verification. And I think that is something that we all need to be working on very closely together, because for me, it looks really bad if one of these deals goes bad. We have to get hauled up to the Hill, and I know you've testified on the Hill. Yes. So it's bad for us, but it's also bad for you, because if we're trying to showcase U.S. technology or a U.S. policy product, or some type of new financing deal that we want to advocate in other areas to open up new market, and it can't work for us, it's not great. So there's that risk, and I think the other risk that I would really urge people to think about when we think about sharing risk is cybersecurity risk. A lot of the energy and sustainability products that we're looking at out there are not well secure. I mean, I think there are a lot of activities now that are trying to do that, but when you're designing these products and thinking about how a customer might use them, designing for the State Department is not a bad idea, because it means that you're also thinking about the rest of your consumer. We all don't want a sustainability and ESG platform, any of those things, to be the vector for some of these cybersecurity attacks. I think the answer is probably really well thought out contracts and well thought out MOUs, and we're still learning this internally. We have an Office of Global Partnership that works on partnerships across the spectrum, and we are lucky to learn from their example, but there's still a lot of work to be done with the private sector.
I think what I'm taking away from this and a range of other discussions with kind of PPP experts is that there is a problem of circularity here that we need to balance. So while collaboration between the public and the private sector is wonderful, a partnership is kind of a harder mechanism, something that is defined in contracts, in financing schemes, risk sharing, so on and so forth. So to have more of these mechanisms come to life, you need to measure their impact, right? You have to build a strong proof of concept and make it a preferred mechanism for collaboration. So I think getting to impact measurement here, what is your approach? How do you deal with impact measurement and showing the value of these partnerships? I do know that it's terribly expensive and challenging, and sometimes it results in these PPPs never seeing the light of day. But what is your general approach?
In Dara, we did a life cycle analysis back in 2007. So to lay that framework, have that bench. Again, I don't know what I did with this thing.
That's good.
Thank you.
It's out of control, this one. It's desperately trying to get off the ranch. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, just so we can all hear you.
We did a life cycle analysis to have that benchmark so we know what we're building toward. But when someone's investing millions of dollars in a process, they want to see results. They want to see, their measurement to their shareholders may be different than it is. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Surely I can work this one. Excellent. Yeah, I'm old school. Thank you. So it is very important for us to measure. That's expensive. Who owns the data is the other big question when you're working with individual businesses. How available is that, and who is it available to? Is the other question we wrestle with in our industry, because we're dealing with individual, not just businesses and manufacturing, but farms, 30,000 of them across the United States. So there's a lot of questions that we have to wrestle with, and our partners luckily recognize the complexity, but they know they have to answer to their customers and their shareholders. So finding the balance between what is pertinent, what is important to share, what can be shared, and how it can be used is something I think all of us are still trying to figure out, frankly.
That's a great point. For us, I think there's a lot of anecdotes about how PPPs have helped us greatly. And a storytelling approach is a good one. We have so many stories of the thousands of employees who dedicate their time volunteering, essentially, for sustainability purposes. And we have wonderful examples of sharing data for climate resilience with host countries and investing in hardening infrastructure that benefits both us and the host country. But rolling up an anecdote into a nice pithy number is very difficult. And so, impact measurement is something that, again, we're really kind of grappling with, because for the Department of State, we have the operation, we have our footprint, and then we have our foreign assistance funding. And it's kind of an interesting microcosm of what scope does that fall under, and how do we want to incorporate considering our carbon footprint for that? And it's something that we have to share across the U.S. government. There's lots of agencies that have foreign assistance funding and are working with smallholder farms and other sectors across the world. So I don't have a great answer, except that there must be a mix of storytelling and metric. We have not gotten there yet, but it's something that I am really, really looking forward to seeing how we mature as an industry, as a sector, because there are so many more students now that are focusing on these types of things. When I went to grad school a long time ago, this was still very new, and now I think there are a lot more disciplines looking at this and thinking about ESG measurement, and I would hope PPPs would also be considered in that, and impact measurement as well.
At the risk of making this a little childish, we're gonna play a quick rapid fire round. I'm gonna start with you, Krista, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So if there is one thing that you would absolutely require in the near term from the public sector stakeholder to supercharge the private sector, your industry's involvement in PPPs, what would that be?
I first say understanding of what it takes to farm and to grow food and to provide nourishment. It is not, it's a very different kind of business. So the practical side of understanding agriculture, walking in with your eyes open, and the partners that we have now, I named a few of them, recognize that. They take great care to understand. But farming is not, it's a very different kind of business, and dairying is 24/7. You don't take vacation, you don't decide you're going to close up shop. So understanding the challenges, I think it's the first thing I ask. That's where we start. Do you really want to work with agriculture? Do you really want to work with farmers? If you do, we're your team. We want to work with you. That's not very fast. I'm sorry. I'm long-winded. But it is much more difficult, more complex, and more complicated. And starting with a partner who values that and understands that, we can deal. We can have a good relationship.
And I guess your turn now, Caroline. What is that one thing that you want from the private sector in the near term?
I'm going to mirror my esteemed colleague here. I think understanding is a great word for it, because the government is a bureaucracy, but it's made up of thousands of dedicated people who are showing up every day, and they have a lot of things on their plate. COVID was, I think, really hard for us all. And so when you think about a PPP with the government, just know that the public servants on the other side are working really hard. They're very dedicated, and present a product that is going to put us all in the best light possible. And I mean that with some of the things that I talked about, like financial risk sharing and coming with a measurement and verification program that makes sense, and trying to use us as a partner that can showcase your abilities to the rest of the world.
Perfect. I guess we can shake hands and break for lunch. Anyways, thank you so much, Caroline.
There's no questions, is there, at the last minute? Or is everyone just so starving for their lunch they've forgotten? It's just, Ed, if you did have any questions on your pad that anyone might be keen? Here comes the magic.
How do dairy farmers feel about working with different stakeholders to meet their goals?
I only heard
Could you just say again a little more slowly, because we've just got a bit of distortion at the back here.
How do dairy farmers feel about working with different stakeholders to meet their goals?
How do dairy farmers feel about working with stakeholders to meet their goals? Am I interpreting correctly? Thank you.
We feel very strongly we have to have them. And the more interesting they are, the more different, diverse they are, the better for us. To bring different ideas, different strengths, different expertise to our table, the better.
And we have another question as well. The dairy industry receives subsidies resulting in lower prices and excess production. Can this be put towards innovation and education?
I think I understand about, we do not have like a program that pays dairy farmers for producing. There are price setting programs that the government is involved in, and there were emergency programs that helped during COVID, especially our smallest farmers. But we don't have a direct subsidy for production. But we do enjoy support from the government through research, through the help of the smallest farmers. We can participate in conservation and environmental programs, but they're, of course, all cost-share programs.
And I have one other question as well, is how can we reduce the level of effort to facilitate private-public partnerships? The private sector can move very fast.
So we're really having difficulty. Give us a good shout.
I hear you. I'm sorry.
These very reticent Englishmen. Give it a good shout, and then we all go to lunch.
How can we reduce the level of effort to facilitate private-public partnerships?
Reduce the level of effort?
To facilitate.
Thank you very much. You've got your hearing still nice and young.
I think having standardized MOU templates is good. So if you have a PPP that worked, if you're willing to consider sharing a version of your MOU, is really helpful.
Sounds good.
It sounds good. That's good.
Cut out the red tape and the bureaucracy and get to work.
Sounds like there's unanimity on that topic at least. Well, that's great, because we can all break for lunch and a bit more of a mingle. Thank you very much for keeping your focus this morning. And it's just a lot of information, but I think we've had some great guests, so I hope you agree. Meet back. It's 2:40, I think, our round tables commence. They're very well signposted, but of course the desk can help. There are two different kind of pillars there. There's business and the Chief Sustainability Officer, that's one, and policy and partnerships is the other. 2:40 is the starting point, but let's all get some time off and something to eat. Thank you. Thank you.